AviationPros.com is the portal website for AMT, Airport Business, and Ground Support Worldwide magazines. Visit daily for breaking news, industry blogs, and insightful articles from our magazine's editorial team. And don't forget to sign up for our publication's daily e-newsletters. It's all at AviationPros.com.
Hello and welcome to this special edition of the Aviation Pros podcast, live from the IATA Ground Handling Conference in Reykjavik, Iceland. I'm Josh Smith, editor of Ground Support Worldwide, and I'm joined by Juliet Thomson, Chief People Officer at Menzies Aviation. Welcome to the podcast, Juliet.
Thanks very much. Nice to meet you, Josh.
Likewise. For those attending the conference this week, they'll have the opportunity to see you present on some key personnel topics. But for those listening back home who weren't able to make it to the event this week, can you share a little background about yourself and your role at Menzies Aviation?
Yeah, of course. So my name's Juliet Thomson. As you said, I'm the Chief People Officer at Menzies Aviation. So I have responsibility for our global HR strategy and all of our colleagues across our business. So we've got around 45,000 colleagues globally, and I'm responsible for HR across the group. I also have responsibility for our group communication strategy as well. I've worked for Menzies for 10 years today, actually 10 years exactly today. And I've held different roles, but I took on this role in March 2020, so right at the start of COVID. But my background, I worked as an employment lawyer before I moved into the Menzies Group.
Well, congratulations on the milestone. And as I understand it, your presentation that'll take place here at the conference is centered around the idea of people sustainability. What components of an employer-employee relationship matter most to employees, and what steps can employers take to improve areas that may be lacking in their organization?
Sure. So, pay and benefits are always going to be important, and that's fundamental, but we really need to go beyond that and beyond that kind of traditional focus purely on pay and benefits. The current workforce, the next generation, they want to work for an employer that cares about more than just how much they're paying their staff. So they want to work for organisations that care about the environment, that care about the impact that we're having on society as a global business, and that cares about how we treat our staff globally and everywhere we operate. So the concept that I'll talk about in more detail tomorrow is focusing on that, is focusing on people's sustainability and how we're contributing to society as a whole, how we're treating our employees with dignity, investing in their experience in the workplace, and supporting their career development through an organisation. So in terms of steps that employers can focus on, I think it's really looking at that holistically, so not purely focusing on the traditional pay and benefits, which is important, that's one aspect to consider, but thinking about the whole offering to employees in the round.
With high workforce turnover rates having a significant impact on the ground handling industry, employee retention is obviously crucial. So building on that idea of cultivating a positive employer-employee relationship, can you share an example or two of how a Menzies station was able to mitigate turnover and improve talent retention?
Yeah, it's a good question, and staff turnover is for sure an issue that we tackle. It's an issue that lots in our industry face day to day. We've seen a lot of improvements in that space. Part of it's labour markets easing, but we're definitely making progress. So year on year, our voluntary staff turnover levels have improved by around 12.5%. In terms of station specifics, we talk a lot about good station manager equals a good station, so making sure that top level management within a station is strong, is somebody who's a very visible leader, is really fundamental to making sure that the staff stay and that the retention issues aren't as severe as we can see in some locations. So good leadership, visible leadership who are out on the ramp in amongst the staff and supporting the staff. Communication is also key, so we talk a lot about the importance of making sure that team leaders are doing shift briefings, that they are also visible to their workforce, they're there supporting them, they're playing an active role in the operations, and then making sure that we're getting the basics right. So we last year launched what we call our Station Manager Pledge, so a global commitment from our station management leadership community to upholding what is fundamentally basic standards. So making sure that they're giving our colleagues their rosters in advance, making sure that break rooms are kept well, making sure that they're dealing with leave requests quickly, they're dealing with grievance requests quickly, and making sure that they are being visible leaders. So that's definitely had an impact for us, making sure that we are applying those consistent standards globally.
And of course, another key component to a strong frontline workforce in ground handling is attracting candidates to this industry. Unfortunately, the COVID-19 pandemic contributed to this challenge that existed prior to that. But as aviation returns now to some of those pre-pandemic levels, are any of these recruitment challenges improving in any way?
Yeah, I would say so. We're definitely feeling the impacts of improving labour markets. So like many others, we faced extreme challenges post-COVID, and it was just a really difficult time, and we focused a lot on recruitment. But I would say in the last year that's eased a lot, and we're going into the Northern Hemisphere summer feeling a lot more prepared than we maybe did in previous years, and staffing levels are looking very good. That said, I don't think we can be complacent about the need to attract into the industry and to the need to retain people in the industry. So it remains a key focus for us. It remains a focus to us to make sure that people are aware of our brands, that they're aware of what the industry has to offer and the career potential that there is in the industry. We're also focusing a lot on the underrepresented group. So we know that gender balance in the industry is not as strong as it could. So we're focusing very much on how can we tap more into that female population as a very strong talent pool for our organisation. We're also working in partnership with an organisation called Tent on recruiting refugees into the workforce. So huge, millions and millions of people are displaced across the globe trying to start lives in new societies, and there's this real opportunity for our industry as a whole to support that underrepresented community and offer them opportunities to get that first step into the workplace. It's not without its challenges. Obviously the security screening and badging process, there's a lot to work through with the government and the airports, but that's a population that we feel we can support, and also represents a workforce that once they're in the business are hugely loyal, hugely hardworking, and tend to stay with us as an organisation for a long time if we can bring them into the business.
Yeah, I think you touched on an important detail there as far as career paths are concerned. It's not so much hiring to fill a current open position, but rather find, reliable members of the workforce who might build a career in the ground handling industry. Is that correct?
That's 100% correct. And I think something that our industry offers that's quite unique is that real potential to have a global career, to have a really exciting career in an industry that doesn't necessarily require any fancy degrees, any significant educational capabilities, but if people are willing to come in and work hard and have the right opportunity, the right engagement with our business, then the opportunities are really endless. And we as an organisation at Menzies focus a lot on social mobility and how we can help people work their way up through the industry. We've got some great career stories of people who've joined the business as a frontline ramp agent, as a frontline front of house role, and worked up into very senior positions within the organisation. We recently surveyed our station manager group, which is what we'd really say is a key role in our organisation. They're essentially the CEO of the individual station that they're running, and over 50% of our station managers globally had started out their working lives in hourly paid roles. So that was really interesting to see. I think that a lot of that really key population for us have worked their way up through the industry into that key position within the organisation.
And then maybe just to wrap up the conversation, I don't want to give away too much from your presentation coming up later in the conference, but maybe somebody gets a chance to listen to this on the way to day 2 of the conference. What can they look forward to hearing about? Maybe some highlights from what you're planning to touch on.
Sure. So the focus for this session for me will be to try and convince the audience that focusing on people's sustainability is fundamental to organisation success. So when we talk about ESG, we focus a lot on the external environment and the impact that we're having as businesses on the environment, which is hugely, hugely important, of course. But tomorrow we'll also focus on what impact are we having on our workplace environment, and how are we supporting the societies that we operate in, and how does how we govern our business impact the societies that we serve.
Well, great. Looking forward to it. Juliet, we appreciate your insight on this topic and wish you a very successful ground handling conference this week.
Thank you so much. Great to speak to you.
You as well. That'll conclude this special edition of the Aviation Pros podcast. For more information about Menzies Aviation and their people-focused programs, listeners can visit www.menziesaviation.com. And if you enjoyed this special episode of the Aviation Podcast, I encourage you to subscribe to it wherever you download your podcasts, rate and review it, and be sure to share it with your colleagues in the industry. For Juliet Thomson, I'm Josh Smith. Thanks for listening, and continue to visit AviationPros.com.